welcome everyone to a Zoom meeting with Falmouth Fire Rescue and Falmouth Community Television. My name is Jeff Wyman, Government Access Coordinator for FCTV. We're here today with Chief Timothy Smith of Falmouth Fire Rescue and Lieutenant Craig O'Malley. And so let's get right into it. Welcome, folks. How are you today?
Good morning. Very well. Doing well.
Great. So I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to kind of introduce themselves and a little bit about their position here at Falmouth Fire Rescue, and then we'll get right into the topics we have for today, which will be a little bit about staffing, some capital purchases and resources, a little bit about winter safety. We've got new station progress update, and then in the end, we'll discuss anything else that we want to discuss that are not those few things. So with that, I'll let the chief kind of take it away and introduce himself, and then Lieutenant O'Malley can go, and then we'll get right into some staffing discussions. So take it away, Chief.
Sure. Well, thank you, Jeff, again. And yes, name's Timothy Smith. I'm currently the fire chief for the Falmouth Fire Rescue Department. I've been with the fire department since 1987. And I've held each position of rank in the department, rising from a firefighter up into the level of position as fire chief. My current position was made available as a result of the retirement of Chief Small back in August of 2020. I was placed in the interim position until the job was permanently assigned or appointed as a result of going through the testing process. So I've been in this position for well over a year now, and working with all of our staff and personnel for to conduct the daily operations and responses throughout the town, and all the other logistical and infrastructure needs for our department to serve the community.
Sorry, Lieutenant O'Malley, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of tell us about your role at the Falmouth Fire Rescue?
Yes, I'm Craig O'Malley. I'm the lieutenant. I'm the fire prevention officer for the Falmouth Fire Rescue Department. I oversee my department. There's two fire inspectors. We also so we're in charge of doing the inspections for residential sales and the buildings within town. We're currently in the middle of the liquor license inspections. We are also tasked, the three of us in fire prevention are tasked with the fire investigation role for the department.
Excellent. So let's get right into it. Staffing, of course, here in the pandemic that's going on now, everyone's having staffing issues and everyone's looking for help. Is the Falmouth Fire Rescue suffering the same situation, or are you guys fully staffed, and what's coming down the pike?
Well, I wouldn't call it suffering, but we are also in the midst of these public safety shortages that are affecting us, as you stated, as a result of the pandemic. We are a civil service department, and civil service is a state-run program. And in order for us to be able to find, personnel or applicants that are willing to work here, we have to go through the civil service process. So it requires us to have a valid and a current list from the state. We call for that list. It provides us with with EMTs or paramedics, and we have to go through the process of vetting personnel, and it's all based on how they score. And once we can get a pool of personnel, then we can go about going through the hiring process and trying to get them on board. Because of the pandemic, the testing process that is normally done every 2 years was significantly delayed for well over a year. So there was an old list that was in place, and it was what we did, what is best described as being very stale. There wasn't a lot of candidates available on that list. So after about a year, we were able to get a refreshed list as the pandemic and the incidences of COVID kind of was being reduced a little bit with a lot of the mandates. So since August of last year, we have been trying to fill vacancies. The vacancies that we were trying to fill were as a result of either retirements or resignations that have occurred in time. And also with the advent of the 8 new override positions and 2 additional personnel that were approved in our budget that were made available as of January 1st of 2021. So we've been actively pursuing filling those positions, and I can currently say that we have all but 1 vacancy filled. We did have we did have all vacancies filled, but we had at the last minute one of our potential candidates had withdrawn from the employment process, and they were scheduled to go to the academy. So that left us, having to contact civil service and go through the process of obtaining an additional person to fill that vacancy. So currently, out of all the personnel that we have been hired, any new personnel has to go to the State Fire Academy. It's a 10-week program. It's a mandated attendance. It's through the contract language with the labor group, and that's where they get all their basic firefighter training, and it's a necessity in today's world. So we recently had 6 graduate. We have 4 that are going to be graduating next week, and we have 1 that's in the midst of the academy now. So that's obviously 11 candidates that have either going through or are just starting the academy, and then they will be coming back here. We've got the 6 that are here right now. The next 4 are going to come back here, and they go through a departmental orientation process. Once they go through that, they get assigned to a shift, and they continue to work to develop skills and confidence and understanding of their jobs, and then eventually they get signed off on all of their requirements, and then they can be made part of our shift complement, which is something that's been discussed over the last year or so with the public. So we're on track right now. It's we have been frustrated with the process, but we're getting through it, and things are a lot more positive than they were last year with our staffing.
Great, that's good to hear. I also wanted to give you an opportunity. Who is eligible for the academy? Are there age requirements? What's the?
So with regards to hiring, there is no age limit with the civil service. The town had adopted change in the bylaw. So now there used to be an age limit of that 32 years of age that has since been that cap's been removed. So if we get an eligible person on the civil service list that's over the age of 32, they can be considered for hiring purposes here. The civil service process is, like I stated, is a statewide testing procedure. Preference is for veterans and for community members. So if somebody that took the civil service exam that was an EMT or a paramedic and they were a resident of the town of Falmouth, they would get preference. Veterans are in the same category. So beyond that, if they're not a resident, then it comes down by score. But anybody on that list could be from off Cape, and that's where we start to develop some of the frustrations through the hiring process, because part of civil service also is that there is a residency requirement, and anybody that accepts a job here has to, within the first 9 months of employment, has to be live within the residency requirement, which is 15 miles as the crow flies, if you want to, the old term, but they have to move within a certain mileage of the town. And some of these candidates are from, are well beyond the Cape. They could be in the Boston area, Somerville, Winthrop, Everett, they could be Worcester. And, a lot of these individuals may, they may want to move here, but the housing costs and such are, are definitely, a concern for us, and as well as other agencies that are trying to hire when there are residency requirements, because of the cost of living that is definitely a problem today. So fortunately, we're able to move forward, and the individuals that are willing to accept the job understand, and that's the requirement, and they have to fulfill that. And once we hire them, then in order to go to the academy, all of their prerequisites have to be met. They have to have psychological exams, medical exams. They have to go through a lot of background checks. They have to be afforded the position. And then we can submit their names to the Mass Fire Academy. And then the next available seat at one of the 3 academy locations, one in Springfield, Mass, one in Stowe, and the other in Bridgewater, if they assign us a seat. So it could take a few months once we've offered a job to somebody, that we have to wait for them to go to the academy. And it's not the way that our training process is. It's not conducive for the department or the individual to come here and not have any training. We would rather have them go to the academy, get the basic training, and then come back here and we can start the process. To do it backwards is counterproductive to getting people acclimated and into the, and into the staffing, mode for us, and to be part of the shift complement at the beginning of the day. So it's a little bit of work, but, we've been doing it long enough now, and we have some, the staff is very versed in making this available. And our administrative assistant, Kim Strom, has been, is very, very in tune with civil service and the fire academy, and we're able to accommodate a lot of these requests early on to try and move this process forward.
Excellent. And real quick, just for if anybody's watching, what's just a random person who might be interested in starting a career in fire rescue, what's the first step they need to take?
Well, each town submits to a different process, or municipality in the Commonwealth. If they're in the civil service process, or in civil service, they must take the civil service exam. And in the fire service, it used to be every 2 years that they held an entrance exam. They're starting to change that policy. So it's now they're going to be coming upon a 1-year exam process. So instead of waiting every 2 years to have an exam and then create a list, they're going to be doing it on a yearly basis, and that should keep that list refreshed. And we hope that will, make some improvements for us. The other thing is civil service can create lists where we have available EMTs, which is necessary because the vast majority of activity in most fire departments in the Commonwealth and in the country, for that matter, at least 70 or more % of all of their call volume is all medical. So our emergency, medical responses, comprise, the daily activity for the most part. We still have our fires, car fires, structure fires, a lot of alarms, other type of hazardous responses that we have to, go to throughout, a shift. But we take EMTs and we also take paramedics. Falmouth is all of our ambulances are all advanced life support certified. We have, we have a good grouping of paramedics in our department, and we try and maintain a high level of paramedics for this advanced life support activity. So we have a preference of hiring paramedics first. And if we can't get a paramedic and we have a vacancy, then we will look to see if we can get an EMT, with the hope that in the future, they may want to go to paramedic training. And, we will accommodate that. And then, having the paramedics is a higher level of training in, emergency medical responses, and it benefits us to have as many paramedics as possible to staff our our very active ambulance system here. So civil services, is one of those things for other non-civil service departments, which on the Cape, it's only Falmouth and Bourne. That obviously there was at this recent town meeting, the police department went through the process of removing their patrolmen from civil service. So those discussions are also being had with the union in the town. So but I have no news or information regarding that at this point. But civil service, being very limited on the Cape, other towns have their own testing process, which also looks for the same type of training. They look for EMTs and paramedics and somebody that may have had some firefighting training in the past, and that obviously adds to somebody being a commodity, and you want to try and get them in the pipeline, so to speak, so that we have somebody that's half the battle is they get the training, and we can get them to be fully trained in the service.
Excellent. And just so you know, if we do get cut off, I think Zoom has a 45-minute limit. I had this going at like 10:25. So if we get cut off, we'll just go back into the email and I'll restart the meeting.
Sure.
Okay, so let's shift gears and talk a little bit about capital purchases and capital assets. I know recently you have purchased a new fire engine and are still in the process of retrofitting that. It's not in service yet.
So we had our recent November town meeting allowed me for some other capital items that were approved. Last year, we did have approval for a new fire engine. So that was recently ordered and is being manufactured as we speak. Unfortunately, because of the many impacts that are happening because of the pandemic, and especially in the manufacturing world, and having materials and such to to accommodate a lot of these orders, it takes about a year for us to have a fire engine that meets our specifications and design criteria to be manufactured and delivered. So that's in the works right now, and so we hope that by the fall or before the end of the year that we will at least have a better date on when it's going to be delivered, and then we can start to get that in service, and that'll allow us to take one of our other pieces of apparatus out of service and used as a spare, and we can continue to rotate these engines because they do get quite a bit of activity, and fortunately we have a good mechanic division in our department. We have two full-time mechanics, master mechanic and assistant mechanic, and they have a full shop that's available to them in the East Falmouth Fire Station, where they can get all this work done for maintenance and service, and other vendors are in the area. So we try and maintain to the best of our ability servicing all these vehicles so we can limit the out of service time. So that's in the works. We recently put our new ladder truck in service, which has been in the works for a few years because of the scale of design for this particular vehicle, and we combined two vehicles together, the ladder truck and a rescue truck. So there was a lot of forethought and activity to get that in service, and we have that in service, and we're still finishing up on equipment being assigned to that vehicle. This past November, I was fortunate that I had approval and support from town meeting for a station alerting system for a new rescue boat to replace our 1965 Boston Whaler. Also a new ambulance, because once again, our ambulances are on the road constantly, and they need to be rotated as well because of the the amount of activity that they encounter on a daily basis. And lastly, we were able to, besides the, those 3 vehicles, we are also replacing our shift commander's vehicle, which is used as, for daily response by our captain, who's in charge of the daily activity for 5 of our stations. And it's pretty much a command post for managing any incident. So those are all being worked on right now. We hope to start getting orders in for all of these items shortly.
Great. Switching gears again, I wanted to give Lieutenant O'Malley a chance to talk about fire prevention for winter, since we're getting close to the technical winter season here in December. So Lieutenant O'Malley, let's talk a little bit about some general things and maybe a few specific things that you want to point out that will assist people and help people for being safe this winter.
So one of the first things, because it is the season, the holiday season, is especially electrical safety with decorations. We actually had a fire. It was just an exterior fire last week that was caused by overloading an extension cord. Extension cords are only for temporary use. They're not supposed to be long-term, and especially the Christmas light ones that you have, the little very thin ones that have the 3-plug head on them, are not designed to carry a lot of power. There's a lot of voltage going through it. So you have to be very cognizant of the fact that you don't want to put too many things on those. If you're going to use an extension cord, it should be a heavier duty extension cord. Also, being that season, if you do have a natural tree, ensure that you water it constantly. A dry tree, if it catches fire, is pretty almost explosive in terms of how much heat and fire that will spread quickly off of that. One of the other things, because it is unfortunately turning colder, is fireplace safety. If you have a fireplace, ensure that your chimney has been cleaned professionally. And you also want to ensure that you have the damper open when you start a fire in the chimney, in the fireplace, because we've had every year we have multiple calls that we go to because they think their damper is open and the house is filling with smoke, and it's just because they didn't follow the proper steps in using the fireplace. Also, after having a fire, when you're removing the ash, ensure that you put it in a metal container and it's away from the house. Every year, once or twice, we have fires that are involved in proper disposal of the ash from a fireplace. And now that we're in winter, and when it comes to snowfall, one of the important things is to ensure that your vents to your furnace and your hot water heater are free from snow. The newer vents that are made out of PVC plastic, because they're high efficiency, they don't generate lots of heat, and that there's not enough heat to actually melt the snow. So if those get covered in snow, the exhaust is going to back into your house, which means carbon monoxide is going to back into your house. So you need to keep them clean, and you also need to ensure that you have working carbon monoxide detectors in your house.
And how does someone recognize if they have a working monoxide detector? They have test buttons on them that you should probably check monthly or weekly.
They do have test buttons on them. If you have a plug-in one that goes into a wall socket, those are good for 7 years. And you may also have the combination carbon monoxide and smoke detector. And those are generally good for 10 years. It'll have the date on the back when they were manufactured, and just need to make sure that they are still used, still work, and that you do have replace the battery in them for the battery backup.
where's the recommended spot to put a carbon monoxide detector?
You should have one on every level of your house, including your basement.
Doesn't matter if it's near the floor outlet or if it's kind of like a,
If you have a plug-in one, then it obviously has to be towards the floor area where the outlets are. But it doesn't really matter. Carbon monoxide spreads throughout the house. It's not something that is low-lying or raises up in the air.
okay, great. Thanks for that. Hopefully people see this, they'll save you a few calls this winter.
Yes.
All right, so a question for either of you, getting into the new station process and status report. I know that's a hot button item here in town, all over town, North Falmouth, West Falmouth. So let's talk a little bit about the station progress up on Sandwich Road and, you know, other procurement spots for future stations.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, as you know, we've the McGrath report that was finalized and was provided to the town administration and was actively discussed, allowed for a station location citizen committee to be formed, and they looked at some of the data that was provided and recommendations by the study, which focused on that one area of town, Hatchville, if you want to refer to it that as that. But they recommended that the station be located on Sandwich Road in the area that is currently being looked at for and actively being followed through for design and construction. But they also made a recommendation to look at the northwest part of the town for a combined station for the north and the west. And that was, even though that this selectman had charged them with looking, providing one location, they felt that, they'd be remiss if they didn't talk about the northwest, because that was mentioned in the report too. So that was a positive, effort on their part to provide that recommendation, and that's kind of helped to guide, looking at the future, construction of another station at some point to combine those two aging stations in the north and the west. So, but for now, we're actively looking at 878 Sandwich Road. It's over by Carrot Shop Road. It's between the rec field and Unitarian Church that's located in place. I see you're going to have to call us back. Is that?
No, it's just giving me it was a holiday gift. They're letting us continue. Okay, great.
So once again, in July, I believe the selectmen, put out, requests for citizens to be involved in a station design committee. They made their appointments, and that committee was formed and has been active, along with internal staff. In my department, we've had, some of our members have, that I've put together to try and look at what our needs and considerations would entail for a new station. And we've been, tasked with providing that information. It comes to the committee reviews all that, including early on getting an owner's project manager and a design architect, and those are all in place. The architect right now has been meeting with us, and we've provided our input, and they're formulating the design for that particular location. I know there's an awful lot that has been looked at and has been questioned over time, but the Hatchville station concept has been discussed in town and with this department for 30 years. So we're finally at that point where that area of town, if you were to look at geographically where our fire stations are, they follow Route 28 and along 28. So they're all, in the villages early on, which is where, that's where they're positioned to serve the population. Population has, built up quite a bit in the Hatchville area. you got the churches, you got the, you got the fairgrounds, you've got, more housing, you got more development. So that area is been, been void for some time. And, thankfully the report showed that, it was necessary to, to put a station in that geographically in that area. So we're very, very excited about this project. We believe it will be a benefit for the town, for all the citizens, not just one area. It will benefit everybody, because one thing that we have to, remind everybody of, and and Craig is very helpful with a lot of this data pulling, is, when we're looking at where we respond to, where our calls are, primarily response times and such, and that's all tracked. But the one thing that people have to understand is that all of our stations are can be called upon at any given time, and when that happens, that station is, personnel are out on a call, then there's a void in that area. And if there's another simultaneous call in that area, it has to come from another station. So we're constantly moving our apparatus around based on where the call is, and we can't predict that on a daily basis. However, we can predict that the busier areas right now is in the main downtown area, Main Street and East Falmouth. Those are the busiest areas. So by virtue of getting the substation in the area that's been affirmed, that's going to help to augment response to the north and to the east, and as well as downtown area. So we're a very busy department. We're the busiest on the Cape. We typically right now are seeing about 8,000 calls a year. Pre-pandemic, we were in the 8,000 mark. During the pandemic, we had a little bit of a lull, and that's because, people were limiting their response or their, transports to the hospital. A lot of people didn't want to go to the hospital because they were afraid they were going to get sick. So what we would typically see was kind of, was minimalized a little bit because of that. But we're back on track, and we're just as active as we were pre-pandemic. So we only see that trend continuing. It's not going to be a big dramatic shift, but it's been, gradually increasing over time. And because of that, it puts a demand on our current operations. It's obviously affected our ability to be able to respond to simultaneous calls, and with the extra staffing and this new station and improved equipment and resource management in our department, and the support of the community and the support of the town administration, we're starting to make inroads with things that have been going on for a long time that we have recognized. So we're very positive about all that's going on right now, and especially this new station that we are hopeful, and we believe that we're going to have the support of town meeting to go forward with the next phase, which would be, once it's presented, that we then have an approval and we go to the construction side of things.
Excellent. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the timeline and some of the process, like going through the steps through town meeting for the completion. So what are the next steps? You have to go back to town meeting just one more time, two more times for different things? And what's the timeline?
Well, obviously, a lot of this is all being driven by, through the, town, with the town administration, through the town manager's office and the finance director, and then the finance committee, and, all those things that are being, that'll be reviewed along with the committee's work. And, this is all going to be brought back to town meeting for approval to go forward in the spring. So beyond that, however that administrative work necessitates, then we'd go from there. But it looks as though we're going to be, hopefully, with the timeline that we have with our committee work, with the design architect, that all of the things that are necessary to bring this to town meeting are all being taken care of right now. And timing is, we do have an established timeline And it's being followed right now. And on Monday night, the committee gave a quick update where we are, and they presented that information, and same thing that I'm saying here. And we're meeting the timelines right now, and we are hopeful that this is all, it'll be a clear presentation and for town meeting at the spring town meeting, and a lot of the information available to show this particular new building is all made available to everybody, so they can make a informed decision. But we're hopeful that it's going to be a very that we're going to have the support.
Fantastic. When you're talking about the new station construction, you mentioned that Falmouth is the busiest fire rescue department on the Cape. Given the data that you have access to and that you can analyze, do you have any insights on why it's the busiest? I know population and demographic probably have a lot to do with it, but I was curious if you had any other additional information. So I know Barnstable is larger than Falmouth, but appears that Falmouth is busier.
Well, and Craig, you can certainly add in any of your insight, but the town of Barnstable is made up of several fire districts, so they have several little fire departments that are built in within the town. Barnstable being larger geographically, because of all these individual departments, they all handle their particular villages. Whereas the town of Falmouth being 44 square miles in size, we have 5 stations to cover, and the seasonal population adds to our increased activities. The fact that now we're at a 30 to 33,000 per year population, and that population is aging, and that's been something that's being discussed. The other thing is that the town has a lot of nursing homes. Town has other services that are available. We have urgent cares, we have a convenient MD, we have assisted living, we have housing developments, we have varying degrees of elderly housing. We also have a facility, the Gosnold, which up at in the hospital hill there is quite active, and they have a lot of substance abuse education and treatment that are ongoing there. So that's obviously a big demand on the community, but all these things are a demand on our services. So we will see increases in our activity in the summertime on top of all of our daily activities. So we can generally right now say that we probably on an average, we do at least 22 to 25 calls a day. It fluctuates sometimes, but that's pretty much the average. But in the summertime, it increases quite a bit. So, the town is a very active community. A lot of people come into town to work as well, because, Falmouth Hospital is a big employer. Hui is a big employer. The town is a big employer. So again, on top of all of that, and then the increased awareness of the need for housing is, and Craig can, certainly, comment on this, because fire prevention takes part in a lot of the reviews with the building inspectional services in the building department. But there's a lot of developments that are being proposed or are going up with affordable housing. So that also is going to show an increase for us. So, so that adds to, our activity. So, Craig, I mean, certainly, please expound upon that if you would.
Yeah, as the chief said, Barnstable is a larger town in square miles and population, but we're the Falmouth Fire Department covers the largest population, because we cover everybody in the town. The town of Barnstable has, as the chief said, has 5 separate fire districts, so 5 separate fire departments to cover that one town. And between, as the chief had said about not only the facilities. But with Gosnold then has lots of
So,
step down units where whether it's the official ones, or we also have a large number of sober homes in the community, which mostly has to do because of having Gosnold here. They tend to stay closer to where the services are, so that adds to the increase in the calls that we've been having over the last few years. But
Great.
definitely with the our population getting older is the one of the biggest drivers. I believe it was a couple of years ago, before I was fire prevention, I was the EMS supervisor, and the average age of the patient that we dealt with was 67. We actually deal with more people over 100 than we do under 10 in terms of patients.
Oh, that's an interesting statistic. Well, that explains the question. Well, gentlemen, I think we've covered everything that I have for you, and I appreciate your time. I was just wondering if either of you have any other thoughts that you want to mention to folks watching, or any other information you'd like to pass on.
yeah, again, and I said it throughout, the understanding and support from the townspeople on, for our delivery of services that we currently afford the community. We do fire and rescue responses. And when we say rescue, we're talking the ambulances. But fire departments now are more what they call all hazards response departments. So fire departments typically will, if there's a question or concern, they call. So if there's a problem with somebody's smoke detector chirping, there's no smoke or fire in their home, but it's related to to a fire life safety piece of equipment, we're called, and we'll respond to just help out the community. Those calls have increased for us because more life safety products that are out there for safety for personnel, they fail, they malfunction, they get old. And fire prevention is very, very active in trying to make sure that, all the standards and coding is all being followed for new construction. But the older the homes are, the elderly population, then they need to call people for assistance. And that also drives up our call, because we go to quite a few what we deem investigations on a daily basis. The other thing is that we don't necessarily take people to the hospital all the time. If somebody's not feeling well and or if they fell, or if they need to be moved, or if they just need some once in a while reassurance, we respond. And the same goes with our fire apparatus. Our fire apparatus goes to a lot of investigations. Somebody sees smoke in the area. Somebody thinks their neighbor might be doing something. We're coming up on burning season, which is probably a whole show that we could probably do on, open burning. I'd leave that to Craig though. So we answer many, many calls for assistance on a daily basis. We're not always leaving the station with lights and sirens to respond to an emergency. Not everything's an emergency, but but we take everything seriously. We respond in kind when we're called. We investigate. We obviously respond if it's for whatever the call is. And we also have a dispatch center that helps to vet all of this for us. They take the calls over to the consolidated dispatch center for both police and fire. So if we're busy, they're busy. So and they're doing, and they get the calls, they process the calls, and we get them, and we respond in kind. So it's a big team effort. Between our personnel that come in on a daily basis to serve the community and respond when called upon, our staff that helps with all the infrastructure and the logistics and the resource management, where everybody's got a huge amount of work that they do on a daily basis. Fire prevention, the lieutenant had stated he's got 2 inspectors. There's a full-time administrative secretary for over in fire prevention. They're very, very active, whether they're doing inspections in the community or answering questions about what's necessary for inspections. They inspect the restaurants, the nursing homes, the buildings. Some of it is based on state requirements. So there isn't a day that they don't have a full plate that they have to deal with. So, so sometimes, people don't understand why we do something, or there's, why didn't something occur on this particular day? We try and educate everybody as best as possible. I've been providing information to the town administration through the Board of Selectmen meeting. If somebody calls here, we answer questions through programs like this to help kind of, get some information out to everybody. I think for the most part, everybody understands what we do. We all, came into this profession knowing what was expected of us. And our personnel, come to work and they go out and do what they have to do. And we get a lot of thank yous. We get a lot of, very positive letters from the community, thanking us for our assistance. And we appreciate that, but that's what we do. And, we just ask that, there's plenty of information on websites. The fire prevention has a website. If you have a question, you can call fire prevention. If you have a question with regards to emergency medical services, we have one of our personnel, is in a full-time position in the department that takes care of the ambulance side of things. Deputies, the fire chief's office, we can answer whatever questions you may have, because sometimes people have heard this or heard that and they don't really know what the answer is, but all you have to do is just ask, and we'll be more than happy to, educate anybody. So we appreciate the time that's spent, in forums like this, and, and we look forward to, presenting more information in the future.
Yeah, great. Again, thank you guys for taking the time to do this, and maybe I'll contact you back in January and we can discuss some future items.
Open burning.
Sounds
Open
good.
burning. Sounds good to me. All
Yeah.
right. Thanks so
Right.
much. Thanks for your work. I know the town appreciates it. I know I do, and FCTV does as well. And again, thanks for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Yep, and thank you, and happy holidays, and safe holidays to all. And we appreciate, again, the support of the community, as we continue to provide services. So thank you all.